Welcome, everybody, to this podcast of Presentation Hell, podcasting from Embark Studios here in Tampa, Florida. Welcome today. Today, our guest is Dean Akers. He's the Ninja CEO and Adjunct CEO. I'm going to let him tell you what that means. Good to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, James. I've been one of the most blessed people you probably will ever meet.
Really?
Yeah, I've just, my whole trajectory's been, well, I'll tell you, I learned a long time ago not to stress about the past, and I don't overly think about the future. I live in the present. But my whole career has been about developing and empowering people.
Mm-hmm.
And,
empowering people.
Oh, totally. That's how I've hypergrown companies. I go in and as I empower the people and give them measurements and let them set them. So I never set them. We have hypergrowth of companies. And
so you empower people by setting expectations that they give themselves. Is that what I just heard?
Yeah.
So the key to it, and maybe I'm jumping ahead here.
No.
But like in many places in leadership, people set up expectations. I need you to hit these numbers. I need you to get this many products out the door. We need to have this many social media feeds or what have you. But it's all seems to have been usually the top down saying, looking at the balance sheet and saying, we have to get to here, therefore you have to be here. It sounds like you flip that on the other side. You let the people define their goals and therefore motivates them better? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I mean, if you look at successful folks that are running large companies, they don't do everything and they empower their people. So how I empower my people is educate them and ask open-ended questions. And then the key thing that I find that leadership, and I've seen it so many times now in my career, is leadership doesn't shut up. When somebody starts to give them their opinion, leadership goes, oh, no, but you don't understand. You don't get our business. This is an employee.
Well, the employees understand the business better than anyone. They're the ones listening to the client. They understand the emotional effects, the physical effects, the I didn't make it on time.
My biggest thing first off, I was president of my fraternity at the University of Florida for 2 years back when fraternities were on the outs. And
what fraternity was that?
I was a Beta at Florida. And
this is just a few years ago, I think.
Oh, yeah. It was 1970, But at any rate, what I found there was I got early leadership lesson. And the biggest leadership lesson I got was how do you lead 120 people to get an end result that you can't fire? Because everybody always thinks if they don't work out, I'll fire them.
It's not that easy, no.
Well, you can't fire a brother in your fraternity.
No, you can't fire a family member either.
Right. So what I learned is asking open-ended questions of what they wanted, getting what they wanted, and having them empowered, this is fraternity brothers now, to produce what we wanted as a result as a group, and they would do it.
So it's allowing you're actually letting them set their own goals with their own ideals, and sometimes I would imagine you were looking at someone thinking this guy's going to be perfect for treasurer, and when you spoke to him, his whole focus was on social planning, and you were misled, you were misunderstood, but because you got that open-ended question, that person found the right place, the right motivation.
Well, they find the right place. I think the best example, and we could talk about my trajectory, but I took over a construction company that was in trouble. Mm-hmm. That's how I became adjunct. Let me tell you how I became adjunct. Maybe that'll help you.
Mm-hmm. Well, Adjunct is a name of a company that you are, your company. Is that what it is?
Yeah, but I had grown one company. I was a sales guy when I got out of college. Went in as a sales trainer.
Well, hang on. Let's slow down for a minute. Explain what Adjunct CEO is. I know you've been doing this for 30 years. Is it you come in and fly in like a parachute? Is it something you show up? Is it a system to help CEOs actually deal with people? Is it what is it exactly? Before we go into how you got there.
Well, I mean, Adjunct CEO is me working with CEOs to get out of their own way.
Okay.
The biggest problem I find with most leadership is they're the problem. Yeah. And once I get them to understand or them to come to their own self-realization, I never tell them anything. Mm-hmm. In fact, friends will call me up and they'll go, what CEOs are you beating over the head today? because if I'm helping them, I'm generally not working for them, so to speak. So I just help develop their best version of themselves.
So as much as allowing the expectations of the people to define their own motivation, you really do the same thing with the CEO.
Yeah, yeah. Because what happens is if you want to have an empowered group, you have to ask them open-ended questions. That's the key. And then you have to do the most important thing, which is, guess what?
Actually, like letting them answer it and empowering them to live to that answer.
Well, shutting up is what I use. And when you shut up,
That is not a good. That's not a quality of many CEOs.
No.
The reason why they get there is they don't shut up.
But now CEOs of large corporations, they're historically great leaders and great listeners and empowers. This is more on the mom and poppers, the entrepreneur that is always, oh, the market's tough or this and that. They're the problem. And when I go in and I just do mathematics with them, 100% of the time I've never lost a bet with a CEO where price, competition, or the economy matter. I've never lost a bet. And I was able to prove it.
What do you mean? What type of bet did you make? What was the bet you make?
Okay, a typical CEO go, oh my God, the economy and this and competition and all this.
I'm not making my numbers because of A, B, and C.
Yeah, the reason they're not making the numbers
The
is
economy,
because of
numbers, the employees aren't showing up on time. It rained last night.
Every excuse. When you start modeling it out and you start asking, or I ask them these questions, and the thing I developed years ago was the 3 circles, and I developed it because I was a sales guy put in a territory that 3 people had failed. And this was a mathematical thing. This is back before Excel and stuff. And I had failed a number of times, or I hadn't, the territory had failed. These were my headwinds. All the 3 competitors were in the territory with parts and services, construction equipment. We were 100 miles away from parts and service. The 3 previous salespeople in the territory had failed and quit because they couldn't make any money. So I had that headwind. And oh, by the way, this was the 70s, and we were the early importers of Japanese equipment. Our average customer was a 50-year-old male in the construction business. Guess what he was doing when he was 20?
He was working on his car, his GM car. No, what?
He was fighting in World War II.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
But,
All right.
But he was fighting the Japanese, and we were early importers of Japanese equipment. So I had every headwind. I had the headwind.
Oh, the perception of Japanese equipment back then in the 70s was not the value we see today.
Oh,
Today,
no, it had
a lot of Japanese stuff is really high value.
It had nothing to do with value. Nothing to do with value. It had to deal with, I was dealing with veterans that fought the Japanese in World War II.
Okay.
So it was a bias more than it was value and stuff. Plus, I was 100 miles away. Well, so I went up with a premise that I said, if I'm going to fail, I want to lose every sale. I want to lose every sale.
Okay, antithetical, but go on. That's against the belief pattern. But why does that make an effect?
Because the key was I wanted to be on the sale where the customer told me he wouldn't buy from me for whatever reason. I didn't care. Versus seeing the sale completed by the results of a machine on the side of the road, brand new, that I didn't even know about it. So I went out to build relationships. Well, out of that, less than 2 years later, I made my first 6 figures in a territory that had failed. And all I did was have customers. I built relationships and stuff, and I just started killing it. And then when the recession hit in the 80s, our sales had dropped, and the company and the owner of the company, he was like, oh, the economy and everything. And I was still killing it. And I said, you guys are all the problem. And they go, well, you think you can do better? So I got to run the company, and we grew it from 50 million in a recession. We were in the recession to over 100 million in 2 years. And we had never done 60 million.
What are these 3 circles?
The first circle is your existing sales.
Okay, so existing sales.
Yeah, and then your lost sales.
Is that the second circle?
No, it's in the first circles. So you have your sales. Say I'll use a company I did recently, or that I was CEO of a while back. I went in and the sales had gone from 50 to 37 million. So it was the economy. So I put the 37 in the first circle, and I called the whole team statewide together because they were talking about price, competition, and market. I said, well, okay, how many sales have you lost? Well, now every sales guy, well, I close 80%. They're all studs then. I said, well, let's assume you lost half again. So that's 38 more million. Pretty easy math, right? So I had those two together. That's what, 76 million. Then I went and I got the total market sales. Then I was able to get
Of the
that
community, okay.
of the whole state.
Okay.
And in the recession, it was 350 million.
Okay, so you had 1/7 of the market, less than
Okay.
that, 10%.
300, which is a big market share for most
Yeah.
businesses. So 350 million in circle three. The circle
Okay.
three is always the gross market.
Okay, so circle one is your sales
Your sales and your lost sales.
and lost sales.
Your lost sales.
Yours. Okay, second one is
That minus circle three,
minus circle three, and circle three is,
the total market.
so if I shuffle it a little bit, it's your sales, the plus minus, then it's the total market, then it's your percentage of it.
No, you got third one is total market.
Okay, but what's the second one?
The second one is not percentage, but let's just use that number. It's 350 million minus 270 minus 76.
So it's the extra
do the
business
math
that
real
you
quick.
missed,
Do,
which is
put that number down.
yeah. So it's like $310 million.
You know, it was 200 and something thousand.
Two-
270.
okay.
Whatever. Let's just say it was 280. We lost $280 million in a recession for one reason and one reason only.
You weren't at the table.
We didn't even know about it. I don't
Yeah,
even
you weren't
use
at the
that.
table. You weren't there. You
I
weren't
would-
there.
I
when
would
the-
be, yeah. So what I did is and I've done this a number of times. I raised our prices 25%
Okay.
in a recession.
That's antithetical, but it usually makes a difference. It gives a value equation that people didn't see before.
That might be the hypothetical stuff, but the reality was, is I called everybody together. Can you picture bringing a whole sales team together for around the state? Now, some of them know me because I've been in the business, around the business a long time, and I said, and now I'm CEO of this particular company. I go, we're raising all our prices 25% in the recession. What do you think all those sales guys thought?
I'm not going to sell anything. They're going to be screaming and whining and saying you ruined my life and how am I going to make my mortgage and it's your fault.
So this is my favorite hobby.
Raising prices? No,
Well,
I'm kidding.
beating salespeople with their own stick. So what I did was I said, guys, guess what we're going to do effective immediately? We're going to raise prices 25%. We had the three circles up because that was just facts. That wasn't my
Okay.
opinion. We had 275 million, 280 million that we weren't getting for any reason, but we didn't even know about it. They didn't tell us our price was
You
too
weren't
high.
there. It didn't. You weren't there. You weren't even.
So I said, I'm going to pay 100% commission for every sale you lose. I'm going to pay you to lose sales.
So if someone's in on the bid and they lose it, they still get the commission.
Oh, yeah. And now you make more money. And then all I have to do is bring back a card with the CEO or the head of purchasing saying, I bought from somebody else. They don't have to tell me who or what money, but they had the actual card of the CEO of the company.
Oh, to
with the
get that
signature.
money. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So they got the CEO to sign
Okay.
it.
So
and
you're
say you
getting
bought from somebody.
validation and you know with real setup that way. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's the next step from that?
They start going out to prove me wrong. And all of a sudden we started getting sales.
Because you were talking to the salespeople, you were making a relationship because the salespeople were actually deeper into the relationship than not.
No, they wanted to prove me wrong, the sales team. So they went out they thought I was crazy. You're going to pay me to lose sales? Well, I've learned from a long time ago, they're not good enough to lose them. That I do know. So what happened is, and every salesperson's not good enough to lose them. It's getting them
Understand
on
that.
them.
Yeah.
So they went out and we went from that 37 million. Our biggest year in 35 years was 50 million. That year in the recession, we did 62 million.
And I understand the technique. What was the mental process that caused this? And I heard you say they're out to prove you wrong, but I want to take it a little step further. They were out to prove you wrong, but there was a relationship between the potential customer that they were making trying to prove you wrong.
Oh yeah, totally.
And that's the relation. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's not, everyone loves to prove you wrong, but in the process, it creates a relationship with the customer, and because of that, you had better salespeople with better relations, and therefore you closed more business.
Yeah. Do you think a salesperson has a great relationship? If a salesperson gets a business card of the CEO of the company signed with I did it with somebody else, what kind of relationship do you think that person has to be able to get that from a CEO? He has
No,
to
that's
have,
really smart.
No,
Really smart.
Every time I do that, in every company I've had or gone into, it's stupid because that eliminates price, competition, and we were in a recession, so I didn't care about the recession. And then we went on to have, and now it's a huge success. I usually I came in as CEO for 3 years, and then I leave. I'm not a long termer.
No, I get that. So let me just sum this up. You have, let's just say, a average business in a market, 10% share, roughly, give or take.
A 10% share of any business is a huge market share.
Oh, I understand that. So you're in a good place. So you're reputable. They know who you are. The people who could buy it because you got 10% of the share, they know someone's buying from you, that type of stuff. You challenge the salespeople and say, you get if every job you lose, get the CEO telling me on their business card what, that you lost it, not the company, and that goes in there.
Yeah.
But the act of forcing your salesperson to make that connection and get a good enough relationship where the CEO is going to turn around and go, all right, Dean, you didn't get it, but here, I'll help you out with this, caused the next time around, to be at the table to begin with, and also caused them to fight harder for the relationship because they get paid just for the relationship.
Yeah, and very few times did I ever get a card because we didn't lose deals.
Because
it was crazy. I learned it a long time ago. I've had every headwind in every business I've been in. When I was in the tire company business, I mean, we didn't sell the big 3 products. We were selling off brands, and then we became the largest commercial tire company in Florida.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a break for a moment, but I just want to sum up what you just said. Basically, as an adjunct CEO, you come in, you challenge the CEO to let them set their own expectations that way with it. And also on the next step, when you actually go in, you challenge the sales staff and say, I'm going to pay you commissions on what you sell, and I'm going to pay you commissions on what you don't sell. But to prove you didn't sell it, you have to prove it with the business card of the CEO telling you lost the gig.
Right.
That action caused a relationship, and it caused the relationship to ultimately lead to more business.
Yeah, generally the relationship, if they got to that position where they could get a card, they got the deal anyway. They very rarely lost the deal. And by my price being so high, guess what the sales guy avoided?
Competition by price.
Yeah, so
because you weren't going like, oh, I'll do it for $17.29, not $17.28.
Correct.
You don't get into the nickel and diming. This is who I am. This is our price. Our stuff's better, and you pay for it because it's worth it.
So we have these things right here. This is probably the most powerful tool I've ever used.
I thought it'd be your voice, but that's okay.
You know what it is?
It's a trick question.
No, seriously.
It's a pen.
No, it isn't. It's a recorder. It's a recorder.
Oh, this is recording what's going on?
No, I don't have it on. It's not plugged in. I just carry it from when I'm meeting with some of my sales teams and stuff. When they're in a funk, I just say, put this in your pocket. And I love somebody goes, well, you're supposed to tell somebody if you're recording. I say, you're supposed to also drive 55 miles an hour on the interstate. Shut up. Pick your battles. We're not going to use this.
You're not going online to frame someone.
No.
You're literally doing that so you can give their words back to them, because people love to hear their own words come back. That's how I've always wrote contracts. I sit down, I listen to what they're saying, I write down what their words are, and their words become the prominent part of my proposal. And when they read the proposal, they go, these people get us. This is good insight, guys.
You want to hear the funniest part about it?
Lay it on me.
Is when we do the recordings, and by the way, I do this with CEOs too. When we do the recordings and we transcribe it with Grammarly or something, 100%, not 99, 100% of the time we see the train wreck before the crash site.
Oh, I can get that.
It's comical.
Well, I'll add that to it. We've got the 3 circles, but listen to what people say, and they will tell you exactly what they want and need.
Totally.
This episode of Presentation Hell has been brought to you by Shuffler. Shuffler is presentation management, and Shuffler has published 2 books. Presentation Management, the strategy of content management and presentation hell, what many people go through when they get ready for a presentation. This can help you present better. You were just telling me something about, you were talking about putting down the numbers and showing your financial statements so people know where they are. And by doing that, it causes a gamification of your business. Tell me a little bit about how I can gamify my salespeople so that they compete better.
I got to tell you how it started. So my dad wanted me to have this hard job between the summers of my junior and senior year in high school.
What's a hard job in high school?
I'm going to tell you, I mowed yards and all that. My dad got me a job because his best friend was CEO of a pre-stressed concrete yard that make the big bridge beams, and he got that.
That's a little closer.
He got this. Got me a job as a laborer. So I go there that first day in the summer, and a bus pulls up at 7 a.m. I'm ready to go to work. A bus pulls up. Guess where the bus was from?
The prison.
Exactly. We had 4 crews. Half of each crew were prisoners. So they got on the bus at 3:30 and went home. It's not like they were motivated, would you say? So I watched them. And every day at 10 and 2, we had a break. And they would flip pennies and they would scream and cuss and I kicked your butt and all this. So I sat there one day. I said, everybody, and I'm a junior in high school or going between a senior. I go, everybody loves to win. Everybody. I see people with no money buying lotto tickets. Everybody wants to win. So I took my crew, and I'm a high school kid. I said, let's bet everybody a quarter a man that we can tie our steel, pour our concrete, finish it, get approved, and there were 4 groups of us, before the other 3, quarter a man. My guys go, yeah. So we go to the Coke machines. By the way, I saw them pitching pennies. So I love they'd scream and holler over pennies. We started doing it. About a month and a half later, I'm at the house, and Mr. Young, who my dad was best friends with that owned the company, he's sitting in the backyard. He goes, Don, I don't know what's going on with my company. My production's up over 20%, and I can't explain it. It had nothing to do with the wages, had nothing to do with management getting in their case. We gamified it. And we were having a blast. And these guys got on the same bus every day at 3:30. It wasn't
in
about
the same period of time. It reminds me of a story in Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm sure you've read the book.
Oh, yeah.
Dale Carnegie owned a steel mill, and it was out there, and they were producing like 4 or 5 furnaces a shift, and the morning shift would come in, and they would leave, and they made 4 or 5 furnaces, and the night shift would come in, and a guy named Charles Schwab, which apparently was the first $1 million annual salaried person, and Carnegie paid him. He came in to up the management of it, and what did he do? After the shift, they wrote down in big chalk letter the number 4 on the floor where the people walked in. And the night shift came in, and they looked down, and they said, what's that for? Why is that on the floor? They said, oh, that's how many furnaces the day shift did. And just by having that number, they started looking at it going, well, we're going to do 5. And they busted their ass and started doing 5. And at the end of their shift, they wrote 5. Lo and behold, the next morning shift started making 5. And as time grew by, they ended up doing 7, 9, 10 different furnaces during the same shift that was already blown out and at their end wits doing 4, not more than 2 months earlier.
Totally.
That's totally where it's going. So if you think about your own business and your own people, how can you get people to compete on such a level that's not just you're going to make extra money this month, but it's also about competing a little bit with the other people in a certain way?
I do surveys. I've done over 10,000 surveys in my career of employees. Money is never in the top 5 out of 10 things they want.
It's a necessary component, but it's not the true motivator.
No, in fact, 99% of the people leave companies not because of higher wages somewhere else, for sure. They leave because of their direct supervision or their direct boss or conflicts. Now, they'll blame it on money. When they go to HR, they go, I got offered more money. I promise you that is not the motivation.
They weren't even seeking out the other place if they weren't dissatisfied in and of themselves.
Correct. And then the CEO...
Unless the money is abnormally high and just way out of the ballpark, then you have to say, okay, it's the money.
But that's an outlier. I mean,
that is.
Why don't you buy a lotto ticket?
Or you can go play Major League Baseball and have someone offer you $50 million instead of 20.
Yeah.
I'm going to the other team. It's pretty simple.
Well, when you gamify your organization, when I had my construction company, I gave a financial statement to all our employees every month. Nobody had ever taught them. Most CEOs I know can't read them.
I know that.
Yeah, and so what happened was as we start gamifying, we had once a quarter, we had a meeting up off Fowler. I rented a whole room for breakfast on a Saturday morning. Nobody had to come. We had 400 people attend average every quarter. With nobody had to come, nobody was paid, and all we did was we went over our financials and our wins. You know how we had 400 with only 325 employees?
How?
They brought their freaking wives.
Because
it was so engaged. It was like stupid. It was like I would sit there and they ran them. They ran the meetings.
Well, what you're doing is you're giving equity to the people. You're giving the feeling of understanding what it really means for me to do this action and where the balance is on the end.
Yeah, and then I meet CEOs and they go, well, my people, if they see what I'm making, they're going to be. I said, no. My people knew I had a skybox at the Buccaneers, a skybox at the Lightning. They knew I had an airplane. They knew I lived on the water.
Do you still have these things?
No. I don't
Okay. No, I was looking for a ticket.
No.
Me.
You know what happened to me with my skybox is like I had the one at the Bucks, and I had 4 clients and their kids wanted to come, and then they called me an hour. This is years ago. They said, "Well, you know, we had something come up, so we're not coming." And he wanted these 4 tickets for he and his family, so they don't show up at our box.
And those are expensive seats.
Back then, it was worth 10 grand those 4.
Back when 10 grand could buy a car.
Well, so I sat there and I go, I'm just going to get out of the box business because I would have people not show up there because there was no value in it. And I went through the whole series. I mean, I had box for a number of years. It was fun to go to, but now it's not something I want to do. If I wanted to do it, I'd probably do it, but it's crazy.
No, that's crazy. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. You have a relationship at the University of Tampa. Yeah. You're involved over there. What led you over there? What do you like about it? What is that component of your life?
My component, well, I got with UT back when I had my tire company, and I had them do a program for me when they were really small, and it helped me having kids take apart our company. And so I got really involved. This is even before Ron Vaughn was the president and stuff. And as I stayed involved, it just grew. Ron Vaughn did a great job. A lot of good things happening, but I still use the capstone class for companies to do a full deep dive, and we give awards, and these kids come back with insane ideas, and then they do all their stuff for their MBA, Porter's 5 and all the crap they're supposed to do. But we always award them on something that they come back, and I say the one that comes back with the biggest idea is the one I'm going to give the big money to.
Okay. What was big money at the time?
$1,000 a person in the group.
Okay.
Which is real money.
And this is a scholarship. You would give it towards their
no,
school,
I wrote a check. I gave them a check.
See?
It wasn't a scholarship.
All right. You never know. I want to know how it's going down.
Oh, no. I use this with a lot of my companies. I take them in there and I do a full capstone class. I got 150 kids. And I say kids are all intelligent people. And
you say kids only in relation to your own experience in life. Well, they are adults.
Oh yeah, they're adults, and what's cool is when you get them energized, and you get them really, really looking into business. They get excited about deep dive into real business, and the fact that I award it based on not the business school stuff, the gotcha moment. I mean, we had one that came back, and they came back and came with an idea that changed our whole business. And when you
never know where it's going to come from.
Yeah, and so what we always do is we award the one that's the gotcha, not the one that met all the little parameters of their MBA class, and they deep dive it, and it's comical with stuff they come back with, and not comical like haha, but the top 3 groups always come back with something that nobody ever thought about.
Well, on that note, it was about a year ago. My youngest son comes to me and says, "You should be doing AI in presentations." A year ago, AI was there was a few nerds doing it and techies and stuff, and I'm like, okay, where? He points right. We have a presentation library that manages slides for big companies, and speaker notes are a big deal. He's like, shouldn't it just generate the speaker notes from the text on the slide? We're like, oh yeah, let's see that. So we started doing it and putting it into it. Here we are 10 months later, almost a year later, and our company is now AI presentations for the enterprise. And we have 5 different points of AI touching in speaker notes, organizing the slides, configuring presentations, putting the library together, actually converting things. And it has taken the whole trajectory that way. And it came from a freshman in high school in another city that just kind of looked at it and was like, Dad, you should be doing this. When everyone who's working on the project, no one's bringing that up. But when they heard it, they're like, oh, we can do that. And it started the whole ball rolling in a whole direction that I believe makes a huge difference at this point.
The biggest challenge I see with people is putting their own filters on, their own self-talk. As a matter of fact, I have a book I wrote called Self-Talk, Think Like a Child. And my superpower is I think like a child. And I try to teach my CEOs, I want you to be a 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And then my sales team,
get it.
A 2-year-old, because a 2-year-old never takes no for
That's where
an
my
answer.
heart is. They don't take no for an answer, and they're determined.
Oh, yeah.
Act like a 2-year-old who puts on a Batman costume and wants to fly around the room.
Right.
That's commitment. That's where it's
Right.
all at. If you get a salesperson to act like a 2-year-old and put on the Superman cape, and you know that person is now Superman flying through the air.
And so you teach that, and they have fun. And like I said, when we did the prisoners, all the prisoners had fun. Mm-hmm. It wasn't about the boss going, you got to step up production, you got to do this. And what happens is...
It's the carrot, not the stick.
Yeah, and when I had my construction company, I empowered. I was doing a big job north of Vbor. I would do these, what I call work days, where 2 or 3 days a month, I'd put all my stuff on and go work with a full crew all day long as a laborer. And I'm down in this big ditch, and my guys go, I said, what would you guys do? And this is after they get comfortable with me being down there. They said, we need a hydraulic pipe puller. I said, why don't we have one? And they go, what do you mean? I go, what does it do? Well, it increase our production 20%. I go, why wouldn't we have one? They go, well, they're expensive. Now,
Well, what's the cost of 20% of payroll? They don't make payroll.
Oh, yeah. So so I asked them what expensive was, and they said to me $1,500. The backhoe was $1 million.
I was going to say, do you know what a payroll looks like? You have 20 people working full time. Like,
oh yeah, payroll, the equipment costs, all that. So I circled it up, came down. I got in the bucket. I went up on the top of the hill, where my 2 foremen were standing. I go, you ever heard of a hydraulic pipe puller? And they go, yeah, sure have. I said, would that help our production? Yeah, I think it would. And I said, somebody better get their butt in the truck right now.
Go
and
pick
get
one up.
I mean, are you kidding me? But where did that come from? It came from the laborers in the mud with me down there. And the reason I asked them why they never shared it, and here's the common thing: I go into companies all the time, and with the teams when I build that trust bond, guess what? The number one thing they always share with me is
the foreman wasn't down in the mud with me, so they didn't know. Nope. See, you're asking all these questions, and I'm coming in second.
Nobody listens to us.
I said that in a different way.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. But it's real key because what happened is most people think that their employees are not, that they're above their employees in brain power. Well, these guys in the ditch have been doing it 20 years. They weren't like, startup labor guys that get promoted to CEOs. They've been laborers in a ditch for 20 years.
They've been they're technicians in doing foundations and all that. They're actually experts in
totally,
it. It's not just getting a ditch and dig. I understand the rocks. I understand the pipes. I understand the foundation.
Totally.
I see the sand isn't right, and I've seen that F up in the past, so therefore we ain't going down that road.
I got to show you one more quick thing before we getting people. I hear people, I can't find good people. I've never run an ad to find a person, and I've never had to use any services, and I could stack companies with people.
And what would you do? What's the secret?
Is I start engaging my teams, and my teams drink and eat or wherever with people that are their peers generally, and I don't incent them to bring them in. All I do is get them excited. So when they're at the bar with their friends or whatever, they go, man, I worked, you know what I got? And my biggest thing, one of the first things I do as a company is I go in and get every single employee, even the accounting people, their own business card. You know how many people don't have a business card? I've had grown people. When I go in a company and I give like a laborer his box of 500 business cards, they go, what are these for? You're important. These are your cards, period. Well, they go out that night and they go, look what I got. And they're telling all their other bar buddies that are in the same business. My lobbies have always been full of people wanting to apply, recommended by my teams. So I've never had to run an ad or have an employee guide, period.
Ironically, I have run ads, but I made one hire. His name was Jesse. And it seems like my whole staff has grown directly from that connection in some manner, shape, or form. There's been a few other in there, but the strongest foundation happens to be that group of friendship, if I'm not mistaken.
And think about the UT question you asked me.
They all came from UT, by the way.
Yeah, selfishly, the reason I've been involved at USF, UF, and UT, especially with the professors, and I'll just take them to lunch randomly. And anytime I need a stud, male or female, so the stud word is...
That wasn't a go ahead.
It's not a gender thing. It's more top of class.
It's
top of class.
It's a 2x4 in the wall that holds
exactly.
things together.
So at any rate, I go to them and I go, is there somebody I ought to have lunch with? And they go, oh my God, you should meet this girl. She's top of the class. She is so sharp. And then I go have lunch with them and I go, what do you want to do? And they go, I'm trying to find it. And then I teach people how to monetize their passion. And when they get turned on, I can always hire them. And they always want to come to work. It's never about money. It's more about, wow, this is going to be my next chapter of life. And you're going to help me develop. My favorite thing when I go into a company and I'm sitting with people and things are dicey, I'll ask them, what are the chances you're going to be here when you're 65? And I shut up. And they go, probably not. I said, 100% not. So what I want to make this is your best experience to help you grow for however long you're with our team. It could be till you're 65, but let's focus on making you the best version of yourself. How many people you think go home and say, this moron's trying to help me be the best version of myself?
God, what a moron.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what it sounds like in a background, I brought it up, the how to win friends and influence people. You embody it in a lot of your techniques, beliefs, the actions that you take to bring in here.
Well, I had to learn it. When you're managing 120 fraternities, you got to motivate them because you can't fire them. So you got to get them excited.
And it also taught you about the parliamentary rules, Robert's Rules of Order, how to manage a board, how to actually go through proper meetings and all those type. But those are important things that are lacking in our education. I learned those things in fraternity, and some of the things you were talking about, I learned in fraternity, and I carry a lot of those principles with me because it was a microcosm of a bigger business. Totally. And when you understand the rules and processes, you learn how to get things done and how to include people and how to exclude people that don't need to be there and vice versa and bring it around.
And I've also found when people talk about quality of employees, first off, I've never ever fired a person in my life. And I've
really?
Had thousands and thousands of
You'll
people.
let them quit on their own?
Well, or if they don't fit, what I'll do is I'll take them out to breakfast or something, and I'll just ask them. And I ask them this question: is this working for you?
And they'll make the decision on their own.
Well, they'll always go, no, it's really not. What do you want to do? Where's your passion? They'll tell me, well, Dean, I didn't know how to explain this, but this is this. What if I can help you do that? That way, when they leave, not only do they leave on a positive note, I put them in somewhere where they fit, and guess what? They become my biggest advocate.
I understand that makes such sense here and what's going on. You've written a book or two. Tell us about it.
First book I wrote was 52 Wows, a relationship guide for men. The reason I wrote it was my wife divorced me, and I learned a valuable lesson. Women are cerebral, men are physical. And I was busy working. She had a house on the water, all this other stuff. She had everything but one thing.
What?
Me. Because I was busy growing my construction company. So she divorced me. And it was very, very hard on me. So I wrote the book. I dedicated it to her. And after she read it, she goes, exactly.
She said, you should have read this 20 years ago.
You should have read it
Dean,
before.
You're not getting there.
And then my second book is Self-Talk, Think Like a Child. And that's my passion today that I work with young people, military veterans coming out of special ops down here, and then businesses, is to eliminate the number one disease that impacts the world today. It's not cancer, heart disease. It's a disease of negative self-talk.
I believe that. It goes into that. Are these books available at Amazon?
Yeah, they're on Amazon. They're on Amazon, and so they get sold all the time. And but my passion is this self-talk thing. When I get that eliminated from people, it changes their world.
This is amazing. So, Dean, I welcome you here today. It was wonderful
Thank you
having
for
you
having me
in
on,
today. The basic theme here as the adjunct CEO is challenging the human being to be a better version of themselves in work, in place, in being, and by challenging them, if it's in salary, doing a better job, whether they want to be there or not, where they want to be, and allowing that open-end question to be allowed you to motivate literally thousands of people in dozens of companies, and it has helped.
Yeah, it's my passion too.
Wonderful. Dean,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much.
Thank
It's a
you for
pleasure
having
having
me.
you here.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Presentation Hell podcast coming from Embark Studios in Tampa, Florida. See you later.